Hi guys, and welcome to my channel, and today I will be baking a WWE wrestling cake. Now, it's my grandpa's birthday and he's always watched wrestling, so I thought this would be a great cake idea. I've never made a cake like this before, so this is going to be the first time I'm baking something like this, so I'm excited to see how it's going to turn out. So some of the supplies I have for today's baking is a 10-inch square cake board that I just got from Bulk Barn. I have a few small spatulas that we're going to use. I've obviously already baked off my cake. Now this is a chocolate cake recipe, I'll note that below. And then I've also pre-made my icing as well. So the first thing I'm going to do is measure out my cake. Now I'm looking to do something that's about 9 inches by 9 inches. Hopefully my measurements are correct. I believe I've baked enough so I can get 2 layers out of this. And I've also already pre-made my filling for the center. It's actually from one of my previous videos, so it's a center for a tiramisu, so it's more of like a coffee kind of tasting center or filling. So what I'm going to do first is measure out my cake. So again, as I said before, I want to do something that's about 9 by 9. Go ahead and grab yourself a sharp knife, and then we'll just measure out 9 inches. Alright, so we have our 9 by 9 inch piece here, and so the cake is not fully level just the way it bakes, so you can go ahead and level off your cake if you have a cake leveler. So I do, so I'm going to go ahead and try to even this out a bit. So this is just my Wilton cake leveler that I'm going to use. You can get this at Michael's or any store, you can order it off Amazon. So we have our first cake layer here, done. And now we're gonna MacGyver this section here. So somehow we need to get another 8 by 8 piece. So what I'm gonna do first is just cut off the lower sides. Don't let anyone eat these cake pieces. So just go ahead and cut off the lower pieces of your cake. Again, you want to have clean edges. You can kind of see how this part here is a little thin. This part of my cake's thick. So we're cutting off that thin part because it slopes down. You don't want a cake that's gonna, kind of cave in on the sides or collapse on the sides. You want it to be a square. Now, because we're gonna layer this cake, what I advise to do is that your bottom layer should be the layer that has all the little bits and pieces that you kind of had to mishmash together at the top. Mishmash together, and then at the top we're gonna have our final clean layer to kind of seal it off. So if you're working with multiple pieces of cake like myself, I would advise doing it that way. So again, I have my 2 cake layers here. Now I'm gonna go ahead and start stacking it onto my cake board that I have. So what you're gonna do if you're gonna be layering your cake is always put a little base of buttercream on the bottom. This is gonna prevent your cake from sliding around. As well, a little trick that I've learned is that they have these little sheets at the dollar store you can get. It's meant to put inside of your drawer so your utensils don't slide around. I've actually bought this and I cut them into little squares and put it on my turntable, or when I'm transferring cakes, I'll put the cake board right on top, and that also prevents it from sliding around. So that's a good little tip as well, because if you just leave this on here, it can slide around a little bit, but once you have this on here, you're all good. So I'm going to go ahead and just put a little black frosting. Just a little dab here. This is just going to help glue our cake down. Not too much because we need this for the cake. Go ahead and we're going to start stacking this here. Now, this piece that I have down here is about 8 by 6, which is great. I might have a little extra cake here that I'm going to use. Got some more. Now for me, gluing your cake bottom together, what I like to do too is just put a little, you can put a little buttercream in this, between it, in the middle. Now just be careful when you're doing this so you don't get any crumbs back in here, so I should probably actually use my smaller spatula that I have. Now remember, this doesn't have to be pretty. This part is going to be hidden. People are going to be eating it, so don't worry about it not being perfect. This is the Frankenstein layer. Alright, so we have our first layer done. Again, this layer doesn't have to be pretty. No one's really going to see it. It's going to be hidden. Alright, so now that I'm ready to start assembling the rest of my cake, I need to put the filling in. So what I'm going to do is put the rest of this buttercream that I've made into a piping bag that I have, so it's easier for me to, you know, put on cake. Okay, so I have my icing here. Just going to clean this up a bit. So I'm going to go ahead and just line the perimeter of my cake, not with too much, but enough icing. So as I mentioned before, I have some mascarpone filling. I'm going to put it in the middle of my cake. Now, not too much, just a bit, because we don't want it to ooze out everywhere. And just bring it right to the edges. Don't let it pour over the edges, though. That's what the icing's there for, to kind of act as a retaining wall. So what I'm going to do now is just pop this in the fridge for a few minutes, just because I want the filling to firm up a bit. It's a little more runny than I anticipated. I think because I had this frozen from before, it kind of changed the consistency a bit. So I'm just going to let it sit in the fridge for maybe about 10 minutes. Alright guys, so I've taken my cake out of the fridge. It was sitting there for maybe about 5 to 10 minutes. Now I'm going to go ahead and put the second layer on. So now we're going to go ahead and give the cake a crumb coat. So the crumb coat is so it seals in all the crumbs. You want to do a nice thin layer around the entire cake, and then you're going to pop it back in the fridge. Alright, so I've taken my cake out. It's been sitting there for maybe about 15 minutes. You can leave it in there for 15-30 minutes. I was checking it out. Seems pretty good. So now I'm going to go ahead and ice the rest of my cake, put the final coat on. So again, I have my black icing here, and I've also mixed up this kind of bluish gray colored icing, because I don't know if you've seen the wrestling ring. I've seen two different colors. I've seen, I believe, black, and then I've also seen this grayish color. So I mixed up the gray color, put a little square on top. So now we're just gonna put the final ice. Now we're gonna go ahead and do a smaller square in the center. Alright, so I'm taking the cake back out of the fridge. I'm just going to clean up the cake board edges, because you can tell that it's a little messy. right now, so you can just get yourself a paper towel, a little warm water, and just use that to clean up the edges there. Alright, you don't have to get it perfect either because we're going to do a little border decoration. So I have some red frosting here. I'm just going to do a little bit of a border around it, make it a little nicer. Alright, so what I'm going to do now is make the logo. From what I saw, it looks like it's a black circle or a black ring with a smaller black circle in the center and then the WWE symbol. So I have a cup here that I'm going to use. I'm just going to use it as an imprint so I can get a perfect circle. I'm just going to touch it on my cake here. Now I have some black icing in a smaller piping bag that I've made. So I'm going to go ahead and just make a small ring. Perfect, now I'm going to make a smaller black circle in the center of that ring. Alright, so now it looks like it kind of has like this red upside down check mark through the center, so I'm going to go ahead and blow more of my red frosting. Now I'm just going to get a little white buttercream. Realized I didn't have it sitting out, and I'm going to go ahead and put the logo on the top, so just the W, and then I'm going to add the decorations. Alright guys, so I have my decorations out here. I actually just went to the dollar store and I found these little, they're actually WWE Wrestling characters. And then I went ahead and I painted some dowels that I also got from the dollar store, just with some black and gold paint. I'm going to put that in the corner. They're going to be the, you know, for the ring. So I'm going to go ahead and just push this in here. Alright, so now that I've put my 4 little posts in, I've gone ahead and measured some string. Now this is just going to act as, I guess, the rope that runs around the outside of the wrestling ring. So I'm just going to go ahead and tie that on. You can use whatever color you want, obviously. Alright. And now I'm going to stick on my little guys. So I'm just going to take a little buttercream here and figure out where I want them. I think I'll just do them on either side. Alright, now I'm just going to pipe on some words at the side. I think maybe I'll put raw. I've seen that, so go ahead and... So you can go ahead and decorate this with other stuff if you'd like. I'm probably just going to leave mine like that. And that's it. So that is your cake. I hope you enjoyed this video, guys. Please remember to like and subscribe for weekly videos.